welcome once again to our Carinine Hour, in which we discuss matters related to the development of our beloved Bahama land. On this first program for the new year of 2015, I've invited Mr. Galanis to come and share some thoughts as we try to reflect on the year that has passed in terms of not just what has happened, but what does 2014 say to us about chartering a way forward for our future development. So welcome once again, Phil. And
thank you very much, Grace. It's a pleasure to be here.
I trust you had a good Christmas.
I had a very quiet Christmas,
yeah,
which is really exactly what the doctor ordered.
And they are the best ones.
Yes, indeed.
I thought we would start off with a word of thanks because the entire nation should be grateful that the Lord was so good to us that we were spared any hurricanes for 2014. Because you are aware of the damage that they do and long-term effect that they tend to have on the economy and the ordinary way of life for most people. So that's quite a blessing that very often we don't remember to say thanks and to appreciate what has really happened. In terms of the national life, could we start with the economy in terms of what's happened in the economy during 2014?
Well, Your Grace, I agree with you 100% that we ought to be thankful that we did not have a hurricane. I would like to echo your sentiments because I always mark June 1 and I mark November 30.
Okay.
And often ask myself, well, will there be a fluke in this year and perhaps have a post-hurricane season event? And thankfully, that was not the case because that, in addition to adversely impacting people's lives and disrupting the life on family islands and in New Providence and elsewhere, there's a tremendous cost associated with it, and a cost that many times we do not prepare for, and one that has to be met whether or not you prepare for it. And so we are very, very fortunate, and with God's grace again this year we will hopefully be spared. Particularly when we look at the number of massive natural disasters that are taking place around the world. And so we are yet to be thankful. We have very much to be thankful for. As far as the economy is concerned, I think in the last show, when I was here last, I indicated that I think it'll probably take 18 months before we find ourselves coming out of the recession that started back in 2008. It has been a very long, a very difficult, and a very pronounced economic recession. And there have been many, many persons affected across the board. The wealthy have been affected. They've lost hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. The poor have been affected. The middle class has been affected. There have been more foreclosures of homes amongst the middle class. There's been a lot of uncertainty, and I think that is really what has caused tremendous stress in our society. The amount of uncertainty about whether or not jobs will be available. The jobs that you enjoy today, will they be available tomorrow or the week after? Particularly having regard to the fact that when you look at our strongest our strongest sector, tourism, we have seen very modest growth, and whereas the numbers may have increased in terms of visitors coming to our shores, we really need to focus more on the stopover visitors because they're the ones who really bring the money. And so when we look at numbers and arrivals, we really need to dissect that number and ask ourselves, to what extent are we really getting value for the money that comes to our country by way of the stopover visitor, because that really is where the focus ought to be.
And also the money that we have invested in tourism.
That's right, exactly.
But I haven't heard of the latest figures, but with the announcement of the easing of the relationship with the U.S. and Cuba, on the talk about Cuba and the threat that poses to tourism, not just for us, but for the whole Caribbean region. It does seem to me that we need to focus more on the brand in terms of what is the package that we're really offering.
That's right.
To the visitor.
That is right.
To make it as attractive as possible. Yeah. And one of the reasons is, it seems to me that we boast about catering to the high-end tourism, but that makes life very expensive for the visitor. And to what extent are we catering to even the middle? Because like the Dominican Republic are focusing on even the low end.
The low end,
They're
exactly.
dealing with numbers.
And they're doing extremely well as a
And
result
the
of it,
volume
yes.
does
That's right.
bring profit, and it does help with the jobs, etc. But it does seem to me that the delay of Bahama was a serious blow to the economic expectations.
I think that is right. I think several things. Let me refer first of all to Cuba. I think it's early days yet for us to really understand what the impact of Cuba's opening is going to be. I think that we also should recognize that what we have heard recently by the Obama administration is a reinstatement of diplomatic relationships. As opposed to a complete opening and a complete
No, the embargo still exists.
The embargo exists, and as long as the embargo exists, that's going to continue to create a problem for the development of that country and for persons to be able to move freely, as freely as if it were not there. I believe that in time, in the fullness of time, even with a Republican Congress, the American people are going to see the wisdom of removing the embargo from Cuba. And so I think it's only a matter of time before the Bahamas has to face the reality that Cuba is going to be a very strident and strong competitor to Bahamian tourism and also Caribbean tourism.
There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
I've been to Cuba several times, and I've stayed in certainly three different hotels, and the service is
the product is so much better, isn't it?
Not really. It's not nearly up to what we offer.
Okay.
So I think they have to invest heavily in training and in terms of service, and but obviously they will do their homework, and because they have some natural factors we don't enjoy.
Exactly. Yes.
A much stronger cultural and a deeper history in terms of what they can offer.
Well, I think the Bahamas has an opportunity to do two things. First of all, to improve the brand, considerably improve the brand. I think we've seen that generally on Paradise Island, across the board. Atlantis has invested millions of dollars in training and education and improving the brand. I think that the same kind of culture is going to exist at Bahama. And I think what you will therefore see is again a very high standard of service, a high level of service by Bahamians at those properties. You made a very interesting point, and that is that they do cater generally to the high-end tourist. And so what I think needs to happen is that the middle tier of the economy, of the tourism industry rather, has to also look at itself and ask, how is it that we are going to be able to provide a similar kind of experience, a different experience, but a similar experience. For example, just take for example a simple thing like Small Hood Bay Lodge in Small Hood Bay in Central Andros. They have for many, many years, initially with Dick Birch, cornered the market of diving, the scuba diving market that created an opportunity for the world's most enthusiastic divers to come to the Bahamas and dive the reef off of Andros. There are other areas, Kamalami Key, again, is a very high-end, it's a high-end property in Andros that has catered to kings and queens from Europe and very wealthy persons from the United States. And then, of course, there are a number of mid-level resorts in all of the islands, whether it's Exuma, Eleuthera, Andros, Abaco, that have also a lot of appeal to Bahamians who visit those. And I've made the point now of on major holidays taking my family to those islands to visit them so that we could learn the islands and also understand, the similarities and the differences. And so there are tremendous opportunities for placing the Bahamas at different levels, different price points, so that we will provide a variety of services to a number of persons that will help to expand the tourism experience.
Well, my query about all of that is why aren't we intentionally providing the environment and forms of stimulus to that sector to enable them to thrive and to benefit more lucratively from the tourist market? Because most of these are owned by Bahamians, and they don't seem to me to be getting the kind of benefits that the bigger entities obtained. And if we're going to promote Bahamas tourism in terms of Bahamian-owned tourism, I think we must see to it that we build in some incentives to make it happen and to increase the productivity involved in it.
Well, but I think several things, you touch on several important issues there. First of all, incentives. Bahamians generally have incentives for getting into the tourism business under the Industries Encouragement Act or the Hotel Encouragement Act. They're able to bring in hotel materials duty-free and so forth. There was a government guarantee program that allowed persons in the tourism industry to be able to take advantage of funding that would be guaranteed by the Bahamas government. I'm not sure if that's still in place, but it was very helpful in helping some resorts get off the ground. The problem, unfortunately, is that too many of the hotels are mom and pop shops, or they want to go it alone. They want to do it alone. They don't want to band together. You have the Paradise Island Promotion Board, Nassau Paradise Island Promotion Board, the Family Island Promotion Board, and those boards are really intended to find ways in which to ameliorate the situation for hotels, small hotels, to take advantage of maybe large purchases or reservation systems or costs, and so but greater attention has to be paid. Greater emphasis has to be made in trying to understand that as an industry we need to come together. We need to take advantage of opportunities that exist together. To hopefully bring our prices down, to help improve our quality, help maybe bring, we can have some sort of central purchasing capability, and so forth. And so there is a lot that remains to be done on our family islands.
Yeah, but what can the government do, or what do you think the government should be doing to focus on these areas and to give it preeminence?
Well,
because
I think
if we're going to place Bahamians first, we have to demonstrate it in practical ways.
One of the easiest things to do is to improve or increase the marketing program, getting the message out that the Bahamas is comprised of 700 islands, and it is done that. We've talked about the islands of the Bahamas, but I think that greater emphasis needs to be placed individually on the individual islands. Okay, for example, you may have an ad that speaks to what are the attractive resorts in Abaco. What are the ones that people should be attracted to in Bimini? What about Eleuthera? What about Mayagona, Inagua, and so forth and so on? I think what needs to happen is that people need to be made aware. Unless you're aware, people, some people will say, well, I didn't even realize this existed. And unless you were able to go out there and do the homework yourself, do the research yourself, you're not going to really have an appreciation. Unfortunately, the role of the travel agent has diminished over time, principally because the travel agent doesn't earn the commissions that they used to earn. There's not as much incentive for them to promote these properties, and so
the computer
the computer has taken over. You have to go online and you have to use Trivago or Expedia or other kinds of software packages to find the locations, but that only tells half the story. I think the government, if anything, can, just as it promotes, allocates money to promote Atlantis, as it probably will do so in the case of Bahama. It needs to make an allocation for the smaller properties.
And I think that's the area that I wanted to focus on, that the government must show that it is intentional in the program, and there should be persons in the Ministry of Tourism whose attention is simply on promoting Bahamian tourism.
Exactly. Yes.
And some money must be
allocated
there
for that
to make it happen.
I agree.
But at this point, we must take our first break.